So let's go to the ACE study. If you saw the film, you know a little bit about it already, but it examines the health and social impact of ACEs throughout the lifespan among more than 17,000 people who are members of the Kaiser Health Plan in San Diego. And we studied 10 types of experience. The first group was household dysfunction. There were 5 things there. And we were shocked to find out how common these experiences were in this population in San Diego. 27% grew up with substance abuse in their home, 23% with parental separation or divorce, 17% with mentally ill people in their home, 13% with domestic violence, witnessing their mothers being physically abused, and 6% had someone in their household incarcerated while they were growing up. We looked at 3 forms of abuse: emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, and those 2 were really common, much to my surprise, because I didn't know anything about this field. I was a cardiovascular disease researcher when I stumbled into this field with Vince. And then neglect, emotional and physical neglect. So these ACEs were common even in the Kaiser Health Plan in this well-educated, middle-class, upper-middle-class population. So there are 10 of them. There were 10 ACEs that we chose to study. And what we very quickly saw that we didn't know before, and most people didn't know because most studies had not looked at a wide array of adversities. They tended, at the time, to focus on sexual abuse or physical abuse, but not multiple forms. We saw that they're highly interrelated. Where there's one, there tends to be multiple. And so the way that I will help you think about that is, imagine if you were one of the 17,000 people that were in this study, and you told us in our survey that you grew up with household substance abuse. Your chance, as a percentage chance of having one of the other 9 is 81%. So 8 out of 10 of you would have one of those other 9 ACEs. And if you go to the far right, almost 60% of you would have 4 or more of the other 9. So you have the first stressor. We're talking about the biology of stress, right? So you have that first stressor, the household substance abuse. 60% of you would have 4 or more of the others. So 60% of you would have 5 or more ACEs if you had the first one. So they're highly clustered. And the way we dealt with that clustering of adversities of childhood stressors was really pretty simple. We just added them up. There were 10 of them, and we created a simple score. Each counted 1 point, not one more than the other. So the score ranges from 0 to 10. And now that we understand the biology, I think of that score as a measure of the cumulative dose, the cumulative exposure of the body to the biology of stress. So it's a stress dose. We found that only 1 in 3 people had an ACE score of 0, had none of those ACEs. 26% had 1, and 16% had 4 or more. So high levels of adversity were common in this study population. So there's this idea of healing communities, and I believe the fundamental starting point is teaching this to people who are affected by ACEs. That's where the power of transformation and transcending all the pain and suffering begins. The majority of any population ever surveyed has at least 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 ACEs. It's the majority of the population in our culture and in other cultures that have been studied around the world. That's where the power begins. And I see communities are alive. You know, we live with somebody that I like to read, this mystic said, we live in an optical delusion of separateness. We're not really separate. We are embedded in life, in a living system, and our communities are living systems. And when we get this information to people, those wheels of interaction start turning, and the people in the systems that serve others come alive in a different way. And when you interact with a living system, it will change. And when you give it the truth, it'll move towards the truth, and the system will start to heal.